We want unequal societies where the resources are divvied up based on worth, on merit, on hard work, on other things. Equality is seen as unjust and unpalpable. In 1514, Sir Thomas More wrote a book about a fictional island that he called Utopia. And Utopia was a perfect place. Perfect equality, perfect happiness, and perfect harmony. Now, the idea of utopia has been in every society at every time we know about. The one that probably people know of best is the Garden of Eden that began in the Hebrew Bible. One historian described the Garden of Eden as a bountiful, property-free existence in the orchards of paradise, a life uncorrupted by capitalism, technology, or even pants. There were plenty of utopias in medieval times. There's the French utopia of Cochrane, which captured the people's obsession of being hungry and thirsty all the time. So in this utopia, the rivers ran with lemonade, fish leapt out of the water, pigs wandered around ready to be eaten, and cheese fell from the sky. There are communist utopias, as in what Mao envisioned as a project of cultural revolution. There are libertarian utopias, as in Ayn Rand's Galt's Gulch, something which Silicon Valley billionaires like Peter Thiel have tried to make into a reality. There are progressive utopias, like the Afrocentric utopia of Wakanda from the Marvel Extended Universe. And finally, there are AI utopias, post-scarcity utopias, like Nick Bostrom envisioning a world where all of our material needs are taken care of by AIs, and all that's left to worry about is boredom and lack of meaning. I'm interested in the question of, are utopias possible? Now, I think that's a good question. I don't think it's a good question because we're on the verge of one and we have to figure, is this going to work? But rather, it's a good question because asking the question helps us make sense of human nature. Bostrom puts this quite nicely. He sees the concept of utopia as a kind of philosophical particle accelerator, allowing us to study the elementary constituents of our values. I want to suggest there will never be utopia, that human nature will get in the way. I'm not the first person to make this claim. In fact, just about every utopia that's been thought of comes crashing down, often because of human sin. Even the name utopia captures this ambivalence. When More did it, he broke up. Utopia comes from two words, topos, which means land, and ou, which is a negation term, meaning not. Utopia is a place that can never be. The argument has been made all over the place, but typically the arguments based to refute a utopia have not been very good. They draw upon phrases, ideas from the Gospels, like the poor will always be us, or misinterpretations of evolutionary theory, like Tennyson's line that we have evolved to be nature red in tooth and claw. And I think we could do a bit better. I think we could draw upon evolutionary theory, developmental psychology, and contemporary sciences of mind to sort of look clear-headedly and ask the question, can there be a utopia? And if not, how close can we get? I want to say there's three clashes between human nature and More's conception of utopia. And the clashes concern, again, equality, happiness, and harmony. And I'll take these in turn. First, equality. In utopia, everybody's equal. But natural selection works on relative advantage, not absolute gain. And so we've evolved to want more than other people. In the modern world, this often shows up in the goods that we wish to possess. So some goods are absolute. If I'm thirsty and I drink some water, the water has value, not because of what anyone else is doing, but just because it helps quench my thirst. But other goods are what economists call positional goods. And these are goods and services that are valued because they convey a relatively high relative standing within society. So Robert Frank describes the growth of houses. Houses have been getting bigger and bigger in every country. Not because our needs have changed, but because we are in an arms race with other people. We want to get an increasingly bigger house than our neighbors, and they keep ratcheting up in size. Artwork is a positional good in the sense that part of what gives an artwork value is scarcity. If everyone could have a Picasso, nobody would want a Picasso. Then there are sort of awards, diplomas, honors, all which gain value because they say you're better than somebody else. Once you start looking for this, you find it everywhere. My son sent me a text, said, Dad, what are you doing this week? I said, I'm going to Wales for this great festival. I sent him a clip. And I said, check this out, I'm in this festival. And then he responded back with his text, Dad, you're 17th. and So if I come next year, just anyway. Even money is a positional good. H.L. Mencken pointed out that it's not the absolute amount of money you make, it's often relative to other people. Mencken wrote, a wealthy man is one who earns $100 a year more than his wife's sister's husband. And I've done research with children exploring the nature of this appetite for relative gain. So we do a series of studies with children where we get them to choose how to divide resources. And these are poker chips that later on get exchanged for toys, so they have value for the kids. And in this experiment, the child has to choose between the green or the blue. And the way it works is the coins close to the kid gets. The ones on the other side, another kid will get. And so here she's choosing me one for her and one for the other kid, that's green, and 2 for her and 3 for the other kid, that's blue. And so we have all sorts of contrasts. So one contrast is between 1, 1, and 2, 2. And 1, 1 means 1 for the kid, 1 for the other kid. 2, 2 is 2 for the kid, 2 for the other kid. Now, suppose kids are greedy. They just want the poker chips. Then they should choose 2, 2, right? 2 is more than 1. Suppose they're generous. They want the other kid to have more. Then they should choose 2, 2, because 2 is more than 1. And pleasingly enough, they choose 2, 2. But now look at these contrasts between 1, 1 and 2, 3 and 1, 0 and 2, 2. Suppose children are selfish. Then they should choose 2, 3, more than 1, 1, or 2, 2, more than 1, 0. Suppose children are generous. Again, they should choose 2, 3 and 2, 2 because it's more for the other kid. But looking at this, you'll notice something. Everybody gets more in the second option. But for the first option, the kid is put in a position where somebody else will have a relative advantage over her. They'll get 3, she'll just get 2, as opposed to being equal. In the second situation, you could choose between the bigger option where everybody's equal, but then she has to give up a situation where she has a relative advantage. We find with the younger children we test, they go for that. It's not that they're greedy, it's worse. They will give up gain in order to find themselves in a relative advantage, or at least not fall into relative disadvantage. And more generally, my colleagues and I find that when you look at adults, there's no evidence we favor equal societies. We want unequal societies where the resources are divvied up based on worth, on merit, on hard work, on other things. Equality is seen as unjust and unpalatable. A second force against equality is that we care for some people more than others. And natural selection suggests for parochiality, we favor family, friends, and neighbors over strangers. We favor family because they share our genes. We favor people we interact with because of reciprocal altruism, mutual benefit through cooperation. And there's very little evolutionary force to favor strangers. And this shows up in all sorts of ways. It shows up in in-group bias. So anybody who has observed small-scale societies points out that these societies often are tremendously generous and loving, and sometimes even egalitarian within their own society, but they're very cold-blooded towards outgroups. Jared Diamond writes about small-scale societies in Papua New Guinea. To venture out of one's territory to meet other humans, even if you lived only a few miles away, was equivalent to suicide. Margaret Mead was famously positive about small-scale societies, saying that Westerners would do well to emulate them in certain ways, but she was kind of honest about what they thought about strangers. Most primitive tribes feel that if you run across one of those subhumans from a rival group in a forest, the most appropriate thing to do is bludgeon them to death. Social psychology, one of the fields that I'm in, is almost entirely devoted to the psychology of ethnic differences, of constraints between black people and white people and so on. And the finding over and over again is such differences exist. We're biased to favor our own and to disfavor the others. Emily Dickinson nicely sums this up. The soul selects her own society and then shuts the door. We are biased towards family and friends, and this is universal. What's unusual, and Joe Henrich points this out in this book about the weirdest people in the world, well, weird is Western, educated, industrialized, rich democracies. What's unusual is there are a small set of societies now, and we're living in one of them, where you're not supposed to do it. If I have a job, I'm not supposed to give it to my son or to a friend of mine. I'm supposed to be fair about it and egalitarian. There's laws against nepotism and so on. And to many societies around the world, this is bizarre. Not only do we favor our friends and family, we're supposed to favor our friends and family. Finally, there's sex and love. And sex and love pose their own problems. If I love somebody, feel love towards somebody, and feel physical attraction towards them, that often comes with a desire for reciprocation. I want them to love me back. I want them to be attracted to me as well. And this gives the possibility of heartbreak. Similarly, there's often a desire for exclusivity. I not only want them to love me and want me, I want to be the only person who they love and the only person that they want, the only person who they would act upon their sexual desires with. And that leads to jealousy on my part and coercion on their part. Utopian societies that have been developed in the United States and elsewhere have tried to struggle with these problems of sex and love, and they go two different extremes. The Shakers say, no sex, no love, outside of the bare minimum needed for reproduction, as a way they said, to imitate our fate in heaven. Other societies go the other way around. So the society of Emeritus in the 1800s had what they called complex marriages, which basically meant that everybody's married to everybody else, and this is enforced. And this was thought because monogamy is thought as a threat to love for the society as a whole. Neither solution is that tenable, and neither society is with us today. We're not suited for an equal world. Second, there are problems of happiness.
To continue watching this video, click the link in the top left or in the description below.
With a free trial, you can enjoy the full talk and thousands more.
Thank you for being part of the conversation.